YouTube, what's going on, man? It's Father Dark, and today I think we have a pretty good video for you all, pretty interesting one, a little bit longer than the normal content. You guys have been saying in the comments that you actually prefer the longer videos so that you can listen to them in the back, kind of like podcasts. But nonetheless, though, I have been seeing a lot of people going back and forth for a while now in Twitter, Reddit, just back and forth, talking about the skins in Marvel Rivals and if they're a little too much on the Gooner side. I've heard a lot of people referring to the game itself as a Gooner game. So I thought it'd be really interesting to talk with another woman, which is a friend of mine, Mace, from our Discord. And she's also one of the mods in the Discord, which reminds me, if you haven't joined the Discord, go ahead and join that. You can find the link in my bio next to my profile picture, and it says more info. You click more info, you'll be able to find a link to the Discord. And we do stages all the time. We have LFGs, we have coaches in there, all types of stuff. And even if you don't necessarily care about any of that stuff and you just want to talk with other like-minded people, you have that option. But before we get into the video, I do need to go ahead and thank our sponsor. I want to say thanks to U4GM for sponsorship. They're a pro web provide service for Marvel Rivals bundles with cheap prices and fast delivery. They have more than 11K good comments. This website is really worth a try. And make sure to use my discount code DARK for an extra 6% off. So yeah, now that we got that out of the way, basically, like I said, I talked to Mace earlier. Mace is actually a really good friend of mine, and like I said, one of the Discord mods. And a lot of times, if I have questions about like thumbnails, for example, that I might use, I'll send them through our mod chat, and I'll see what the other mods say as well. Along with one, a lot of you are familiar with one that she's one of the best Jeff players until nerf recently. Now she switched over to Magneto. But like I said, though, I do think that if you're gonna have a conversation and talk about how women feel about things, it's probably best to have a woman to kind of give that input. So like I said, I'm not gonna hold it off any longer. I'm gonna let you guys go ahead and get into the video. I'm not gonna do an outro for the video, so I'll just say preemptively, I do appreciate you all for watching, and I'll let you go ahead and get into it. Basically, you had brought up earlier to me, you were saying like, oh, well, Marvel Rivals has like the issue where you feel like they were over kind of exaggerating maybe like the female form and stuff. And, I thought it would be interesting topic to talk about in regards to the fact that a lot of people have labeled this game a Gooner game, and I think it's interesting, just personally, because I've brought it up before in the past. Are you familiar with the game Concord?
No.
No? Okay, well, Concord was a game that came out right before Marvel Rivals, and it was literally the same exact thing. It was a hero shooter. Now, granted, a lot of people argue that Marvel Rivals is really popular because they have the Marvel IP, which I do think that is a big part of it. But at the same time, though, I do think that games that when they tend to have more attractive characters, whether that be men, women, both, whatever, they usually tend to do better than games in the same genre that don't. And there are exceptions to that. Like you could say games like a lot of times very like post-apocalyptic games like, The Last of Us or something like that, where everyone kind of looks probably not at their best, which makes sense because it's post-apocalyptic. People tend to not care as much if there's a good story. But I do think that it is naturally a situation when you do present very appealing characters, like I said, once again, whether it be male or female, tend to just do better overall. But what are your thoughts on it, though?
My thoughts are basically the same, that I think that the level of attractivity of characters plays a big role in any games as well as in any other stuff that actually sells on the market. If you take, like, for example, a sports video where you have someone performing certain practices for what you can do at home, for example, um, people tend to most likely watch those videos more where you have a woman performing looking like really attractive than as if you have a man like in mid-age. And it's not even turning someone down. It's just I think that's that is aesthetics. How is it
Aesthetically,
pronounced?
aesthetically.
Yeah, aesthetically. It's just a question of what human find attractive in general. So, in my opinion, like psychologically, there is some program we all run, and we from by nature we are just looking for people that are looking appealing and attracted or attractive to us, and that's why I think it's just a basic natural human thing to look out for these things more than anything else. So, of course, in my opinion, it does get more successfully, the better the characters look.
Yeah, and I agree. I think earlier we were talking about it. I won't say exactly how it was worded, but basically, in layman's terms, you kind of said that, basically attractive things sell, right? Whether that could be into like what people view as being an attractive person, or whether like it's a car that has curves and we like it, or it's very sleek or whatever. You could, even with something as simple as me picking my monitor, like a lot of times it's a very visual thing. We like it to be thin and borderless and curved and all that kind of stuff, right? But I was just telling my wife a second ago, she had just left out of here to go finish for a test or whatever. But I was telling her, I was saying that when I was a kid, there was a commercial for Hardee's. I don't know if you guys have a Hardee's there, but Hardee's is basically kind of like a place that sells these really big burgers or whatever. And me and my dad were watching TV, and like this commercial comes on, and it's just a girl like in like a bathing suit washing a car, and she's got like soap and bubbles and stuff everywhere. And this commercial is like 30 seconds long, and we're trying to figure out what the commercial is about because there's been no product that's been presented. It's just this woman washing a car and like playing with the soap and stuff. And then at the very end of the commercial, they're like, Hardee's, we got the triple stack bacon burger. And me and my dad both looked at each other like, what the hell did this have
Really?
to do with burgers? Like, you know what I'm saying? But we went to Hardee's the next day and got a burger though. You know what I'm saying? So it's funny like how that works. And I don't know exactly like what it's called, but there's like this part of our brain that's like the core part of our brain. Like literally it's like the size of a peanut. And it's like all the other stuff in our brain is like wrapped around it. And
Mhm.
I think it's called something like the snake something or something like that. But basically, like the way that it works is that it controls like your breathing, your eating, and the fact that you mentally think about like reproducing, right? And
Yes.
that's like so that like if something was to happen to your brain, that even if all the other functions weren't working right, you're still going to want to eat, breathe, and be attracted to things and want to reproduce. And that's
Yeah.
why like in marketing, that's something that they really appeal to. They appeal to like your basic needs, or they appeal to basically like, here, let's throw an attractive model in front of these people, and then we'll just put our product there. And to this day, like it still holds true. I mean, that's why they a lot of times will go and they'll get like influencers and stuff, and the influencers will do their hair, look all nice, put on a nice outfit, and then they say, hey, buy this particular product. And a lot of people go, okay, whatever. So with me personally, like it just kind of makes sense why you would do things like that. And another thing that I want to add too for people that are listening is that like attraction is like different for everyone. There is no like everybody finds this particular thing attractive. And I'll give you an example. Mace, you already know I'm an avid lover of Squirrel Girl, and before Squirrel Girl, it was May from Overwatch. That's more like what I find personally attractive. Like I find women that I view as being like what a lot of people would consider like nerdy or whatever, with like the glasses and shorter, less petite women. Like that's what I personally find like attractive. Whereas there's other people who are like, no, I'm all about Mercy from Overwatch or Psylocke or whatever. And I think the same can be said for guys. There's a lot of guys who are constantly like, oh, I'm not 6 foot, so no one finds that appealing. And I have a brother he's probably like 5'4", and he's never had an issue like finding women. And the same could be said about like people's their physical sizes and stuff like that overall. There's something, everybody has like a different opinion on what they view as attractive. So to say like, oh well, there's only this slim certain height character in a game, and that's what all the guys like. No, not true. Like, and I think that games like Overwatch and Marvel Rivals do a good job of presenting a bunch of different types of women and men, to kind of like, what I'm saying, give everybody kind of something that they like. But overall, though, I do think that when you have something that's nice to look at, whether it be people or like the actual like physical objects, like I was saying before, like cars or whatever that's in the game, the more appealing, the more people are gonna want to go for it. Like if you're playing GTA, it's pretty rare that people are like obsessing over like a minivan. People are usually trying to make a bunch of money in the game to get like the high-end sports cars or the bikes that can fly and stuff like that. So, but what do you think about that, Mace?
I'm thinking about an answer, to be honest. Forgive me my Germanness. I literally struggle with the words sometimes.
No, you're fine.
Um, so basically, for me, it's like that. I'm playing games since I was 14, so quite a while now, over 20 years. I reached an age where I could say I'm probably older than the majority of players nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I had the chance to play a game, I was playing female characters, though I'm a female. I was not even playing male characters when they were available. Um, Coming back to what you asked before, because as you know me by now, I'm listening to people. I like to listen to people a lot, and while I'm listening, I have so much thoughts that I have to sort it after when I get asked a question and think where I have to start to put everything together, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And regarding this, I was someone always playing female characters because I really like the bodies of good-looking female characters in general, and I can identify myself as well better with females than males, and that's something I can't even describe why, because like by nature, going back to what you said about like the reptile part of the brain,
Mm-hmm.
um, if it was only like this, I would play like very attractive male characters,
Mm-hmm.
uh, because that would be simply natural for me. But as I said before, when we talked about the entire stuff in the chat with Invisible Woman,
Mm-hmm.
going back to this, I want to pick up what I said there. I said that I'm only disturbed by one outfit in Marvel Rivals, which is Invisible Woman, where like the dark one.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally bought every outfit for every support character that I have, except this one, because I think it's just simply too much. And that's only because I feel like um, they got it too far at this point. Like they always claim in their servers to be like familiar friendly and 13 age years old, and it does not fit to the moral to make a game where the characters are so naked that you can actually see so much of the body, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel well with that one dress that she wears, and it's I can't even tell you why. It just simply pushes me back when I look at it. I wouldn't try because you have the view from the back of the character. Like every game, all the game, unless you do an emote, you can actually see the front of it.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, you are looking at the back of the character. And if I turn the character around and look at this certain custom, I'm like, nah, I don't want to see that all game, you know? And there's other characters that I find more attractive, for example. Just like you like Squirrel Girl for some reasons. My favorite character is, for example, Black Widow, because she has a very toned body, a very fit body, and actually that looks for me looks like a healthy human being, you
Mm-hmm.
know, like literally most tuned and defined, and something I was in my 20s roundabout because I was much in the gym and doing stuff like a lot of I mean, I was pressing 130 kilos, which is like 260 pounds with my legs. I looked like a footballer, you know.
Oh wow.
And yeah, I always get a little bit reminded when I see that character. So that's probably why I'm attached to a Widow,
Mm-hmm.
especially, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to give just a little bit of context in regard to the whole Sue Storm, her Malice skin is what I believe it's called. That's actually a comic book accurate skin. That's not something that they made up. Now I'm not debating your feelings on it or how it naturally makes you feel, but I am just saying though that technically they just recreated a skin from the comic books. Now the thing about that skin though is I won't say exactly what happened to Sue Storm, but she did have a situation that was a very like traumatic situation for her, and she felt like she wasn't being listened to as the only female of the Fantastic Four group, because obviously there's four people and she's the only female in the group. So she felt like, you know, there was a lot of different things going on and she wasn't being listened to, and the Malice character or aspect or whatever you want to call it of her was actually created kind of like to create a balance to that. You know, it's kind of like, you know, when you get all those negative feelings and you're a super positive person all the time, maybe sometimes you just kind of crash out and you're like, here's this split personality of mine that is completely different. And that's the thing, is that Sue has always been a very, in my opinion, reserved, woman. She reminds me very much of my mother, in that regard. Like she's never really been one to wear like super revealing outfits. I mean, for the most part, like when you compare her outfits to a lot of females in comic books, especially around the time when this story took place, which was like somewhere around like the 70s or the 80s when it happened, she had never really been, viewed as someone who wore like the more like Psylocke type outfits. You get what I'm saying? So for her, that was like her complete opposite counterpart. But that is something that they did add into the game. And I do like the fact that they've given her more of her, like, I guess you could say, more modest skins in comparison to just saying like, hey, let's just throw like the wildest ones out there that we can find. But they did do the same thing with Reed Richards as well, with giving him the Maker skin, which is where he's from an alternate universe where he basically has like lost most of the people in his world. So he kind of like just goes around doing a bunch of crazy stuff. And I'm explaining that very poorly, just for the sake of time and stuff. A lot of people in the comments, I'm sure, can break it down a bit better. But nonetheless, though, what do you think about like with, like, in comparison to, because I see this a lot on Twitter where people are complaining, they'll say, well, they give a lot of these types of skins to the female characters, but then when it comes to the males, they don't really do the same thing for them. And then after that conversation had taken place, I kind of saw where like they made that skin for Iron Fist where, he pretty much has like the whole like chest area kind of like exposed. And now we're getting the Weapon X skin for Wolverine, where he pretty much just has like a long pair of shorts on, but then he's just kind of like exposed and chest wise, and people are kind of saying that they're trying to kind of like balance that out a little bit, kind of like they were talking about the Thing in like a bikini skin or whatever it was, so do you think that there's kind of like an imbalance with the skins for women versus men? Do you care at all? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are that the developers are listening to the community very well in Marvel Rivals, like the company NetEase itself.
Hmm.
And I see more and more skins coming out that were complaining about not being enough on the Marvel Discord, like the main Discord.
Hmm.
I think that the male characters are already looking really good, and there's a lot of attractive male characters as well. But as I saw the other day, I was actually wondering, they gave a buff to the male characters. Did you know that they actually put a little buff on, I would say, the prolonged back spine of male characters?
I think that I had heard someone referring to that about Black Panther one day, and I don't know if that was the
Yeah.
only one, but I did see like a side by side comparison. But arguably, I usually will scroll past stuff like that. As a red blooded male, I tend to not put too much focus into it. But it is good to know though that, like I said, that is, if people are, see, because the thing is not to take too long with this, but the thing is like, usually in games, I've always just grown up with comic books and games and stuff like that. Women have always kind of been very proportionate in certain areas, for lack of a better way of putting it. And it's just now kind of becoming a thing with, like, not saying that women haven't been into these things, but I guess with the internet and like things like social media, you're starting to see that women are coming forward and saying, hey, we also play these things. We would like to see certain things as well, which is why, I brought you on for this video to get your perspective on it. But then a lot of times I see there's a lot of women that also appreciate, just like yourself, where they're saying, well, I like seeing an attractive woman in a game as well. So, I do think that that's interesting that they, like I said, that it's getting to a point to where they're saying, hey, we would also appreciate if there were certain proportions on the male characters as well, just like there are the women. And I don't mind. I'm all about fairness. If something applies one way, it should apply the other way. I don't think it's fair in any situation really to say, well, I should be able to have my cake and eat it too, but you should just get the cake, right? Like, no, you should be able to eat it as well if that's what I'm sitting over here doing. And I don't think that it's a very fair rule if you say that it should only apply one way. So, if that's what they're doing, I'm all for it, and I'm all for, women getting skins that they enjoy equally. But I do think that it's interesting that a lot of women that I have talked to about this, like especially like in the Discord and stuff like that, like between you and one as well, both of you are kind of like, I don't really have an issue with any of these skins, and I don't really ever hear either one of you saying particularly that you care about getting the male skins, like the male versions of them. And I could be wrong. Did you just say that you do want like male skins that are kind of like the equivalent to some of these more like goonified skins that we're getting in the game, or no?
I think I'm actually the wrong person to ask this question to because I already said I'm playing female characters more likely than male characters, and I had no proper explanation for it. But I think coming back to the roots, if you look at NetEase as a company with those big company bases that they have all over the world, there is a whole science behind UMM, for example, and there will be a whole science about how much skins will be sold, how much characters will be played by how many players, and they will just go with the flow. That's my opinion. Coming to the marketing stuff, they will see if they bring out a new custom or anything, they will see how many people bought this, how many people bought that skin, and how much is it played afterwards. Like when they brought Emma, like Emma is one of the characters that is most controversial, discussed in my opinion, because she's kind of out of the box, and even though I think that like her skin was sold the most, if you ask me, without having seen any numbers or statistics or anything, I think they just checked or constantly check on how much and how good their products are selling in terms of costumes. Because this keeps the game running, this keeps the company running. Companies have employees, they must be paid, science must be paid, game development must be paid. Like everything costs money.
Yeah.
And therefore, I see it very fair to actually charge people in a free-to-play game if they want to have special costumes. And I think that the costumes that are actually coming out are just a product um, of the observations that are behind us already, and they just go with the flow, go what the community asks them to do, and just bring out what community requesting from them. I think the majority of the players of Marvel Rivals are at least halfway adult, like 15, 16 and upwards. And of course, the interests are there, but I think they are just going with the majority, and actually the majority that pays the bills. That's if I would be straightforward, I'm saying they go with the flow of the people who pay the bills.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's pretty much any successful business or anyone that has any type of business sense. That's just what you're going to do, And I'll give you an example. You already know between you and Mace, which if you don't know, I know a lot of you that listen know who one is. She's been in a lot of the talks and stuff like that. Mace is just now getting comfortable enough to want to do these, but Mace is one of my mods in my Discord as well. If you haven't joined the Discord, go ahead and do that. But the point I'm making is that a lot of times, because I do appreciate you all's input, especially with people that I consider to be friends and stuff like that. You, my wife, Mace as well, yourself. A lot of times before I upload thumbnails, I will put them in the mod chat and I'll say, hey, what do you all think about this? Do you find this offensive? Is this too revealing? Whatever the case is, just because, like I said, it's just respect for your opinion and stuff. And I've had you tell me before I think it was the thumbnail before last, you were kind of like, I said, hey, what do you think about this? And you were like, I think maybe you should maybe tone it down just a wee bit. I think maybe if like, as a father, if your kids were to see that, they might not think that was, the most appropriate thing. And I immediately, toned it down a bit. But at the end of the day, though, the thumbnails that I make that have what are considered to be, by most people to be attractive women or whatever, those are the ones that a lot of times get the clicks. I have people that come in the comment section and they specifically say, I clicked on this because of the thumbnail and I stayed for the conversation or whatever the case is. So even in something like content creation, having an appealing thumbnail or having someone that is viewed as appealing on the thumbnail will probably garner you more clicks. And just like you were saying in regards to the skin, I know that when the Malice skin came out, that's all people were talking about that skin and how good it looked and just, oh, wow, we're getting content like this. And then the same exact thing happened with the Emma skin. You can, and it's like you said, we don't have to necessarily see numbers to kind of get an idea of what skins are the most popular because we see them the most in the game. And like I said, Rivals probably has tried to sell other skins in the past and stuff that were, a little bit more simple, basic, and stuff like that. And the numbers probably showed them that people just didn't really care. And like you said, that when people spend their money on a particular thing, that only encourages them to make more of them. And this is something that I talk about all the time, like especially like with videos and stuff. So a lot of times there's videos that I don't personally care about, but I see that other people, like it's a big deal to them, and it's something that they feel very, they feel very strongly about it. So it's something that I talk about because it's content, right? Like I can sit here all day and talk about things that are interesting to me, and no one else cares about it, and the video will go nowhere. But if I bring up situations that other people find to be very interesting and they're very passionate about, they get views all day long. So
Said about that one thumbnail that you asked me for my opinion, and I said it might be a little bit too much. Um, I just thought from a major perspective of how we might think a woman or a woman's body or a man's body should be as an optimum is not really realistic. I mean, we are shaping some taste of how females or males should be physically to be attractive in games, like in very early ages already, which will actually make us looking for these kind of people in real life. And I think that is influencing a lot of how we grow up, especially when we start games very early. And I think that that might be a little bit of an issue that we are expecting people to be not only physically 100% attractive and perfect, which is no one in real life, you know? There
no.
is no single person on this planet that is just perfect. And um, I think that that is actually something that I find a little bit problematic with this entire Guna stuff and how they shape characters, because it just gives an unrealistic picture of how somebody should look like.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is the thing that I feel like has been brought up a lot. Like I had made a video previously back when the skin that you were referring to, the Malice skin for Sue Storm, had came out, and I had made a video talking about that. I had saw that there was a few couples that had been saying they broke up because maybe the girlfriend got irritated that her boyfriend was playing this game all day long and staring at this skin of Sue Storm, and they didn't
Yeah.
like that or whatever. And I had used the example with myself, right? Like I have more of like a swimmer's build. I'm not like a super muscular guy, but I've always tried to make sure that I kept myself in a certain type of, I've held myself to a certain type of standard my whole entire life, right? And like I was saying, like if my wife was sitting here obsessing over like Venom or Magneto or the Punisher or something like that, it wouldn't bother me because I don't feel like I should personally care, like when it comes to video games or something like that, the kind of characters, no differently than me myself personally, I'm able to separate video games and comic books and movies and TV shows and stuff with all the editing that goes on behind the scenes. And even now, like when you see a model on a page, that thing has went through so many like layers of Photoshop and brushes and filters and all that kind of stuff, and I'm fully aware that when you actually see them in real life, they might have some blemishes, or maybe the curves weren't as curvy as what what you saw or whatever. But I do understand that, like, my understanding of that is just my understanding, and that not everyone has that understanding. There are a lot of people out here that think like, oh, I saw these women in this movie or whatever, or this TV show, comic, game, whatever, and that's just what women should look like. Same thing with like men a lot of times. Maybe like all you're watching is like, athletes or something with like the most optimal body types or whatever. And maybe there's women out there that think like, oh, this is how all guys should look, and how that doesn't create necessarily like a healthy mental. But I also understand too that people, they like what they like, and that's up to you. I don't really try to control what people like. But I mean, like you said, I do think that creates kind of like an unhealthy kind of like perspective on the world and what a lot of people look for. So
Yeah, what you just described, how you would be personally if your wife was like that, or your wife might be. I think you are both like literally healthy about a lot of stuff and have a good view on a lot of things where I find someone else, even big streamers or YouTubers, jumping into small stuff and getting overly emotional or something like that. So I think in that case, we don't need to talk about ourselves in general, but about the time. I don't know if you know it, but like a few years ago, there was that model standard. You have to be like 5.9 feet tall as a woman. You have to weight this and this weight, or you have to have this and this weight to look how they supposed to look, you know? Because the standard for women was back in days super thin, um, and super tall, and these women were actually only made for the stage to wear all these new stuff and haute couture and stuff like that, you know. And like the picture of how women should look like changed over the years of the last years. So it got more curvy and stuff, more realistic. We also have characters that have a little bit more weight here and there, which I actually
Squirrel
find
girl.
good because I, yeah, exactly. uh, which I actually find a good thing to do because like bodies are different, people are different, and it's not like we all have to be like one meter 80 to to look attractive and be like super thin and stuff. What the one guy finds attractive, a woman with muscles, the next one finds it very attractive if they are like soft and curvy, and the next one finds a good mix of that attractive. So that's reality, you know. And I still think that the best characters, either in games or whatsoever, movies, they are a good balance between perfection and like normal yous and me's.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it for a second, right? I feel like one of the most common like Halloween costumes for women that I see is what is it, Velma from Scooby Doo, and is it Velma or Daphne? I feel like it's Velma, right? Yeah, Velma's the one that wears glasses and the red skirt and the
Yes,
orange sweater.
yes.
Okay, so yeah, Velma. Velma is like, that's to me, those are like the types that I like. I like the very round features, soft features, shorter glasses. You know, like yeah, I can find more like the Emmas and Sue Storms like appealing, but that's just not the type that I would normally go for. You know, I have a very kind of niche thing that I like. Like I said in the Discord, whenever everybody's sitting back, going back and forth about who's the most attractive in the game to them or whatever, it's like me and one other person are usually in there going Squirrel Girl, right? And that's fine. I don't need people to like what I like. I like the things that I like. That's perfectly fine. I don't care what the next individual likes. For me, that's just more short, attractive women for me or whatever. So, but like you were saying though, everybody has their own specific taste. It's the same thing with guys. You know, like I said, there's this giant misconception that if you're not 6 foot plus and you know you don't have a certain type of build or physique that you're just, you know, there's no hope for you. And like I said, my brother is literally proof that that's a myth, because like I said, this guy, he's about as tall as my wife, and you know, like I said, I've never seen him struggling to ever, you know, be in a relationship or anything like that. So like I said, it really just kind of comes down to if you understand that everybody has their own thing. And I think a lot of people become kind of like obsessed with a certain thing and think that because of what society kind of dictates to be attractive, that they kind of have to have that, even though maybe they're into something else. And I think that all kind of goes back and plays back into what you were saying about how, you know, whether it's video games, modeling, movies, whatever, it kind of like dictates to people mentally and says, hey, this is what our standard of beauty is, right? Like these are the kind of women that you're seeing on a stage. And I think that's why it's important that we've opened it up, like you were talking about with modeling and stuff, to where they show, you know, that not every woman has to be 6 foot tall to be attractive. Not every woman has to be a size 2 or 3 or whatever to be attractive. Like you there's all different levels, and there's definitely all types of men out there that you know, like these different types of women. I just saw one the other day where it was like a Maxim had, I can't remember her name, I have to look it up, but she's a Korean model and she is very curvy and voluptuous, and she was on the cover of Maxim magazine. So, and people were just absolutely going crazy over her. So, and I think it's the same exact thing with men as well. Whether you're tall, short, in between, you got the beer belly, you got six pack, everything in between. There's somebody out there that's going to be interested. I used, I don't know if you know Sniper Wolf, but I used her as an example in a previous video that we did for a stage call where people were talking about that. I think actually I cut that out toward the end because that's not what the point of the video was. But people were just talking, and I was just saying that like Sniper Wolf, people were trying to figure out how her boyfriend had pulled her for the longest time, because this guy is just not the kind of guy that people would have thought that she would have gotten with. He was just kind of like your everyday guy. And I was like, he's probably really funny or something. And that there's a lot of women out there that just, they don't even care what you look like. They just like a guy that makes them laugh, it can be vice versa with a lot of other people as well.
Yeah. Speaking about all the outer stuff, like how people appear on the first impression, I mean, there's no second chance for the first impression, right? That's the
Yeah.
old saying. So basically, the first 10 seconds, we see someone, the body is doing an auto scan program, which tells you if you find someone good or bad. That's basically it. But actually, what makes people also attractive is the way, like Squirrel Girl, for example, if we come to that, she's not that kind I would like to identify myself with, at least not physically, for example. I think women pick woman characters that they most likely identify themselves with. For example, we have this one player. I love her really much on the server. Her name is Yaki Kana, and in my opinion, she is one of the best healers I've ever seen in Marvel Rivals. And she's so modest and so humble and all the time so shy. And she plays Cloak and Dagger, for example. This is her favorite character. And if I see her playing that character and see her avatar on Discord, I always think that character, like the in-game character, fits totally to Yakikana's personality, you know? Like she's literally for me as cute as Dagger.
As Dagger, yes.
Yeah, as Dagger. I think like she's completely like Dagger has a smooth way to move, and uh, how she dances around when she heals and stuff like that, turns circles, and like she's just elegant.
Very, very graceful. Yeah, elegant's a good word. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think if I hear Yakikana speak, like she has a very soft voice and she's so shy, I always think she must have picked that character as well because she's identifying with herself. But that's just my assumption. I never asked her about that subject, but that's how you see it from the outside and think, oh well, the character fits a lot to her. Just like Thor, for example, he fits to you. I know if I would imagine you, if I wouldn't know how you look like with the deep voice and stuff like that, I always would imagine you as a Thor.
I just like to get up close and personal. I don't resemble Thor at all. I think if anything, the closest build I have to someone in the game is Spider-Man, like that, more of a tall, slim kind of build. Well, not anymore. Now I'm starting to get my dad weight on, but even still, it's like it's very evenly proportioned though. I don't let anything get out of proportion. But yeah, no, I mean, I think with guys, we just more kind of like pick the character that we personally kind of like. But I do think that that's interesting though that you bring that up in regards to, and I could be wrong. I don't want to speak for every single guy, but I haven't ever heard a guy pick a character and say, I'm picking this character because I feel like me and him relate. It's more like the skill set that they have and how that appeals to how they want to handle a situation. If people are more sneaky and they like to be more like assassin type characters, they'll usually pick more like Black Panther, Spider-Man, Iron Fist, like those dive kind of characters. Magic. But if they're more like me and it's like, no, listen, I just want to get right up in your face and just swing a hammer around. It's like, yeah, we're going for Thor or something like that. And then you have people that are a little more tactical that might want to play penny and stuff and really work around the mines. But like I said, I do think that it's interesting though, the difference in how you kind of talk about how like a lot of women might select characters and will tend to maybe go, oh, well, I like this character. I like how they look. And I think that's interesting because My wife, that's how she picked Wanda. She to play Scarlet Witch. She was like, "Oh, I just like Scarlet Witch. I like the way she looks. I like her hair, I like her outfit. I'm gonna play Scarlet Witch." It wasn't like she came to me and said, "Okay, what does Scarlet Witch do? Does she do this or does she, like?" And that I feel like that's how a lot of guys would kind of choose the character, is like, well, what kind of play style is this? What's their role? Whatever. So I do think that's a really interesting point, and I would like to know in the comments for men and women, kind of like what goes into your thought process when you're picking a character, to kind of get a better idea about that.
Yeah, as you speak about it, I remember when I met a Spider-Man player once, and I really think like for me personally, it is just as much as I think people pick what they can identify with, you know. Um, this Spider-Man player, he was playing really good. That morning we were in quick matches, and I was like, oh, okay. And then he started talking, and I was like almost falling from my chair because he had like the deepest voice I ever heard in this universe. And I was like, there's no way this voice is real. And it did not fit to Spider-Man at all. I mean, we all know the Spider-Man movies, and we know Spider-Man as a character is not like a super huge Thor replication, half of a Hulk.
Yeah.
And then you see that small, fast character that swings around, and then you just have the voice of freaking. I can't even tell how. If I want to do voices like that, I use voice mod, and voice mod has something that like one voice that's called Barbarian.
Oh wow.
and, and I
Conan over
use
here.
this voice. I used this voice once to troll people in Marvel Rivals when they were joking around. I was checking on voice mod and went Barbarian, and someone said something and I replied, I am Groot. with the with that Barbarian voice, and someone like even said, "Oh wow, dude, you must stop smoking." And I was like, still in that voice saying, "I'm actually a girl."
Pack a day, right?
That was so funny, and I was so curious if this voice was real. That guy was a streamer, like a small one that just streams to make friends and get some contacts. And he was like, "I'm streaming," and I was like, "Okay, give me your Twitch account." And I checked the stream, and he kept talking like that, and I was like, "This voice can't be real." And as a woman, you automatically wonder how's this guy looking like? Is he really looking like a Spider-Man that he actually plays, or does he look like a Hulk? How he speaks, you know?
Yeah.
And when I saw a picture of him, like this dude actually could be my son by age. Not gonna
Oh
lie,
wow.
like really, he could be my son. That was the first thing I was like, oh, so funny. And the next one is he actually really looks a bit like Spider-Man. So
Oh wow. With that
and
deep
he has
voice,
such a deep voice. Yes.
that's interesting.
Uh, that this was really a funny moment. So I think when it comes to that, it would be interesting to hear other women, a woman's thoughts about how they think females or males when they pick characters, how much they identify with themselves with that, because I seem to do naturally uh, bring one thing and another together and think like, okay, he must have picked that because he's like that. But on the other hand, if I look at myself playing Widow and liking Widow as a character, I mean, she has the worst kit in the entire game as a duelist. We don't need to talk about that. They urgently need to rework that entire kit, in my opinion. But I still like to play her, and I still like uh, the character how it looks like, even though I would not identify myself with her as a personality, you know? Like I do like the looks, but I don't like or I don't identify myself with how she plays and what she plays and who she is. Just by the lore that I picked up, because I said before about all the Marvel stuff, all the Marvel characters and the characters itself, the lore. I can't speak much about that because I didn't really go into that before I played the game. Even only then, I just started to wonder who's Venom, who's Spider-Man, really, what's the background stories. I mean, I've been watching Spider-Man years ago, and I forgot about the content, like about every content I watch movies of. It's just like I watch it, I like it, I forget it, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, totally understandable.
And I think basically it's really interesting to check on people if they consciously or unconsciously identify themselves with the characters, and as much. We might do a poll about this on the Discord.
Yeah,
That's
think
actually.
I think it'd be interesting to find that out to see, because, like you said, I mean, I do think there are some people that may see a character and go, "Oh, maybe I'm not necessarily into this character, but it looks like a lot like me, or they have a very similar personality or whatever, so I'll learn this character." But then I think there are like a lot of people that they just pick a character based off of whatever their like play style is and how that better benefits them. Because like I said, with me with Thor, uh, I just like I said, it's just to me it's a lot easier to just get up in people's faces and fight instead of having to like sit here and poke each other from like a mile away like Magneto players and stuff. But I do have a respect for Magneto players and the fact that their timing on how to give their teammates bubbles when they're needed during an ult or when they're one shot, and being able to for a split second block any kind of ult and stuff, whereas like I got to swing my hammer and run away from it. So it's one of those things where I do think that it's really really interesting. But one random thing I did want to add is that I think most people get curious like when they hear people's voices, because it's so interesting when you hear a voice and how you can paint a picture in your head of how you might think someone looks based off of just their voice. I used to do that a lot like when I was younger, and radio was the thing prior to everyone being able to use Spotify or Apple Music or whatever you use. And I used to constantly hear people's voices, and I would always wonder, like, what does that person look like? And then you might randomly see that person in a commercial, or maybe they would be out doing, like the radio stations will come out in the summertime and like give away free stuff and stuff like that, have little like, celebrations. And every now and again, I would see someone that like I heard on the radio and I'd go, oh my God, he looks, or she looks nothing like what I assumed in my head, or made them out to be. The same way how, you were saying like when you hear people with like deep voices, you assume like I must be Thor, God of Thunder, and it's like, nope, couldn't be any further. I mean, we're probably like the same height or something, but outside of that, like,
May-
you know,
Maybe maybe God of Sparkles is one of
yeah,
Forza.
yeah, and that's what you said now since it's nerfed. But honestly, though, I'm still playing Thor. I don't feel much of, if he's got nerfed, it must have been microscopic, because I'm still ruling the Marvel rival streets as Thor. So I don't know if we can call him the God of Sparkles just yet. Maybe after like another nerf or two, maybe.
Um, just coming back to this one, I actually thought about the widow part and how much I identify with her.
Hmm.
What I discovered later when I played Widow, because I was like, no, this character can't be meant to be played like an original sniper,
Hmm.
because she does not headshots. Like the headshots, even if you hit them, which is not easy if you play the first hero shooter in your life,
Hmm.
um, they just have like 210, 225 something ish DPS on the enemy charges. So you basically have uh, still a little bit health on the enemy left. So it's never a headshot, and the enemy can just run off.
Yeah.
And I was like, there must be something else that you can do with this character besides finishing off people. So I started to look into how professionals play it and how they played Widow up to Celestial or something,
Hmm.
which I think is a hard thing just by the fact that people are starting to go crazy as soon as you pick Widow, because they think you are throw picking, which I find sad. If you play Widow close to the healers in the backline as an off finisher and as an anti-diver to protect your healers, especially when you are used to play support and you know about the divers, and if you have a really good Spider-Man that actually harasses you as a support and you don't have any DPS around to peel for you, and the other healer is not healing you back, so there's no patty cake at all, and you have struggles to survive, you wouldn't wonder how happy you'd be having a widow around to just finish off these divers. And for this, you have the melee attack that I showed you,
Hmm.
with the grappling and stunning and
Give him a kick.
headshotting,
Yeah.
because the healers always help to shoot, so there shouldn't be a problem. And it's so comfy if you are playing Widow and you are playing with supports in the backline, and then you just notice that actually they notice that you help them. they will heal you a lot more than as if you run around like a sniper
Mm-hmm.
and never be seen in the field of like in the field of view of an healer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to get heals, it's so much harder to play Widow. But if they actually see, okay, this Widow is here to protect me when I'm getting dived, so I can do my job, I'm gonna give them some heals every now and then. And I'm not talking about healing Widow as if she's a tank. Just a little bit heals here and there are enough to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And it's much more fun to play Widow. So I wish for future to for people to actually look into how Widow is played most effectively and to use it as anti-dive because I think the supports will be happy as well. It's just a random thought that just came to my mind.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a very good point. I think that, like, you know, the game still isn't like old enough, in my opinion, and with them having so many characters for people to have like fully fleshed out characters and understand them. Initially, I did think that like Widow was a throw pick, but more and more lately, and every time I talk about it, it just becomes a few more than it was the last time. I'm starting to see people playing Widow that are actually pretty nasty with her. I've said it numerous times. There was a Widow that I went up against in rank one last season when I was in Plat. Right there in Plat 1 about to get to Diamond. And they went like 32-3. And I tried to like sneak attack this Widow with every person in the game. I started out with Spider-Man, put 2 shots, and as soon as I would go in for the grab, immediately within that split second, they were able to turn around, kick me, and headshot me. And they did this. I ran into that Widow like twice. It was within like the span of like 4 games, like that first game, and then I played a couple matches, ran into them again. And one game they were on my team, the other time they were on the enemy team. But when they were on the enemy team, it was literally almost like impossible. I just kept switching characters, and no matter what character I switched to, they would just turn around and snipe me. And I even thought they were hacking, but when I went back and watched the replay, there was numerous shots that they had missed and stuff like that. But it just seemed like for some reason with me, they just could not seem to miss. And like I said, I've been seeing more and more Widows like that. These people that really are putting the time in and the energy to learn the different combos and stuff like that, and the cooldowns and everything to really get that character to understand it like the back of their hand. And like I said, it's going to take a little while because there were so many people that wanted to play Widow when the game first came out that were terrible and did kind of sell for their team and wouldn't switch. So people have a lot of negative memories of Widow players, and it's gonna take a while before people get to a point where they start understanding like, okay, if I see this Lord Widow, they might actually be about that life. So, but I do think that's really interesting, and it's not the first time that's happened with characters. You had the same thing with Wolverine. People didn't understand how to play Wolverine. They would pick Wolverine, do really bad. People were like, please get him out of here. And then once people started realizing what he was for and how to use him properly, he started becoming pretty much a staple in as far as a ban goes for ranked. And I'm pretty sure that we're going to start to see that more with other characters, the more that people really start to understand what their purpose is and how to utilize them to the best of their ability. We'll start seeing more people go, oh, that's actually not a bad character, so. But we're coming up on an hour here, May, so I'm gonna wrap this up. But is there anything you want to plug? Is you have a Twitch or a YouTube or anything like that? It doesn't even have to be gaming related. It can just be whatever. Do you have anything that you want to plug or promote or anything like that?
No, thank you. I'm just happy to be with you guys.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. I'm sure everybody listening has appreciated it. Like I said before, I don't know if I said it, but the reason why I brought you on is simply because if I'm talking about anything in regards to women, I can repeat what other women have told me, but I really don't like to speak for anyone, even like speaking for all men, and with some exceptions. But for the most part, though, I would much prefer if we're talking about something and how it affects women or how they might think or something. I think the obvious thing is to bring a woman on and allow her to give the woman perspective and their thoughts and opinions. So I really appreciate having you on and you being able to give those perspectives and thoughts and stuff.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, most definitely.